will go ahead and start in about 3 minutes. If you can go ahead and take your seats. You can keep talking, just, sure. I think we'll go ahead and start. It is 6:30. That's my job. Wonderful. Let's all take a seat. Please make sure that you grab a copy of the agenda at the blue table when you walk in, please. Does everyone have an agenda? Great. Yes, I am Kelly Brown with Turner and Townsend Heery, and we're part of the program management team assisting the city.
Can you hear me now? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. If you'll take your seats, thank you all for being here tonight. This is another exciting day for the city of Norcross as we embark upon creating a new public safety building. And before I begin, I want to introduce council. If you acknowledge yourself by raising your hand, Councilmember Matt Myers, Councilmember Bruce Gaynor, Councilmember Andrew Hickson, Councilmember Arlene Beckles, and late to the party is Councilmember Josh Baer, if you would have a seat there. So again, thank you all for being here, and good evening. Well, today we're gathered here for an important town hall meeting to discuss a matter of utmost significance to our community, and that's the construction of our new police station. It's a privilege to stand here before you today as we bring together our voices and our ideas to shape the future of our town. First and foremost, let me express my immense gratitude to each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today. Your presence serves as a testament to the shared importance we place on the safety and the security of our town. A new police station is not merely a building, it's an investment in our collective well-being as we come together to envision and plan for this crucial addition to our town. It's vital that we actively engage one another, share our concerns, suggest ideas, and brainstorm solutions. This town hall meeting serves as a platform for open dialogue and an opportunity for each resident to have a say in our design and the functionality of this new police station. So our goal here today as council is to listen. We want to hear from every individual, regardless of age, background, or profession, as everyone's voice matters in this conversation. Your experiences and your unique perspectives will help to guide the decision-making processes for this new police station. Now, during the course of this meeting, we'll address several aspects of the outside of the building, the shell itself. So we'll explore the location of the new station and ensuring that it's accessible for all residents. We'll also talk briefly about the range of services that we'll undertake, taking into account the need of everyone in this community. And additionally, we must consider the architectural design, the technology to be integrated, and other essential elements that will reflect our values and enable our police force to serve us effectively. So let's remember that our discussion today goes far beyond just the structure itself, even though that's where we're gathered here today and it's really important. But we have an opportunity to foster closer ties between law enforcement, the community, promoting trust, transparency, and collaborations, the very essence of community policing. So again, thank you all for being here, and we'll go ahead and get this meeting started. Coming up first is our city manager, Eric Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Newton. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. We realize that we're wearing people down a little bit with public engagement, but we've had the Arts Master Plan and doing the Master Plan for Parks, Green Space, and Trails, the Comprehensive Plan, which is probably the biggest involvement of a community in anything government does. But this is probably the largest project that the city's ever done, in part because costs are so high today. What I wanted to do to start out was, some of you came back in January, and you may have wondered where we've been. Back in April, we had a fairly significant discussion with Mayor and Council about how we should go forward in terms of constructing a building that will house both our police department and our municipal court in a model that you see very consistently around the Atlanta metro area, public safety building that recognizes the synergy of both of them remaining side by side. So back in April, we talked about how we go forward with actually constructing designing and constructing this facility. At that point, Mayor and Council decided that we ought to do a little bit of a pivot, which we've done since. And that is, first of all, to get an organization to come in and represent us as the owners of this facility. When I say us, I'm talking about all of us. So they wanted a firm that would manage the process, represent us through both the design stage and the construction stage. The second thing that they decided back in April was that we had originally selected an architect based on the premise that we could take the old library building, renovate it, and use it as a police headquarters. But as we got into space planning, we recognized that building was about half the size of a police building that would last for as long as a building needs to last, which is probably 50 years with some renovations along the way. But by adding the municipal court, we got to 33,000 square feet of space. And so at that point, Mayor and Council also advised that we should go back out and select, through a competitive process, an architect to design a building, knowing from day one that what we're going to be doing was building a public safety building from scratch. So we've gone through that process. We selected the two firms that are going to be running most of the meeting tonight. The first one is Turner Townsend Heery, which will be handling the project management and representing the city and all of you. And then the second firm, not coincidentally, is Croft. And you might say, that's the firm we had before. And the answer is it is, because not only did they have the expertise several years ago to be selected as the architect to renovate a building, but they actually, in the metro area, they have most of the experience of designing the type of building that we're looking to design. So they came through this process, but I think that as the investors in what we're going to be building, that you should know that we went through that process specifically to have someone that would be looking out for our best interests on a day-to-day basis throughout the process. And the process is going to take about 2.5 years, about a year for design, another 1.5 years for construction. We're going to talk about the site in a little bit, and then we're going to talk about how that building should look. But the idea is to have someone representing us throughout the process and to ensure that we had an architect that was up to the task of building this type of a building. And so they're here tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Brown to start the discussion, then we'll bring off Croft as well.
Thank you. Well, good evening again. My name is Kelly Brown, and I am joined here with Hannah Price, and we are from Turner and Townsend Heery, along with Chad Katzner. Raise your hand. With AEI. Together, we make up the program management company, the team that is assisting the city with the management of design and construction for your public safety building. We are joined here tonight by Croft and Associates. They are your architect for this project, and they are represented tonight by Allison Hardy and Kip Stokes. So if we're following the agenda, next up we will have Chad, part of the program management team, come talk to us a little bit about the building overview and the programming on the inside.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chad Kastner, and I'm with AEI, part of the program management team. So this project is located, as you can see on this map, near the intersection of Buford Highway and Norcross Tucker Road. It is roughly 33,000 square feet of proposed space. This space will include public safety, it will include public spaces, patrol spaces, command, detectives, evidence, a fitness suite, dispatch, and courts. It will also house a public meeting space. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Eric Johnson.
So a little bit we wanted to do is to kind of explain the site, and we talked about this site back in January. The site hasn't changed, but what we've been doing is assembling property so that we have an adequate site. And I just say that Mayor and Council considered other sites in this area. Buford Highway is an important corridor for us. We recognize that some of the people that come to court aren't actually from Norcross, and so there's a bus line that will provide access to this site. This is Stevens Road, and so the key with Stevens is there would be a back way into the site from historic Norcross. The public would enter off of Buford Highway. That gives access to people from wherever they may be coming within Norcross or the people that are coming from outside Norcross. But we think that that's a very public space. We had acquired the library as part of the deal for the library to move to the new Norcross Library, but we did at one point consider whether we would use a different site and be able to resell this site, but arrived at the conclusion that it's a good site. The only challenge to this site that I just want, as we start to talk about design and why we're going to show you two-story buildings, is that Stevens has 3 pieces of infrastructure underneath it. It's got a local water line, a local sewer line, but more importantly, it has a major water line. So developing the site means that a building won't sit on Stevens. Stevens can be used for access to parking, can be used from the Norcross, historic Norcross side, perhaps for access for police vehicles to come into a secure parking area at the back of the building. But we can't actually put a structure on Stevens. But we've acquired 4 parcels on the other side of Stevens, and that'll provide lots of opportunity for the amount of parking spaces that we need for 2 reasons. First of all, we have a lot of people that show up in court that need access to parking. But secondly, as you just heard, with the idea of having meeting space there for the community, we need to have plenty of space so the community can come to events. We're in a nice size meeting space tonight, but as you know, there's very limited parking here. So this is the site we'll be using. Keep in mind that there's a reason why we won't be placing a building on top of Stevens. The cost of relocating the county utilities just doesn't make sense. But that's part of what's driving the fact that what we'll be looking at is a 2-story building on this site. So again, we just want to kind of reinforce, we know some of you were here back in January, some of you may be new to this. I'll just tell you before I sit down, permanently this time, that it's a long process. It's probably the biggest investment that the city will make for the foreseeable future. But it's going to be well worked out. It's been well thought out to this point. The key is that for those of you who were here in January, there was an artist's rendering that almost nobody in the room liked. So we took that message that 2-story building that we showed at the time was something that I think reminded too many people of the new Norcross Library. So we're here tonight to give you concepts and have you have the opportunity to tell us what you like, what you don't like, because you're paying for this building. You ought to feel proud about the building that we build. And so we want to make sure that we're taking as much input as we can. And this is the first of what we hope will be 3 meetings between now and January as we go through that process of designing what this should look like. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison from Croft, and she will walk us through the designs.
So much. All right. Out of curiosity, who was here in January? Oh, a lot of you. All right. Well, so we're going to be looking at a number of styles here tonight that are going to be for this building, that's going to sit on this site, that's going to be at this wonderful corner of Stevens and Buford. And I think in addition to looking at this as a 2-story building, it's also probably going to be a building that fronts that corner, that's going to be very firmly rooted in the corner of that site. So that's something that as you look at these examples that I'd like for you to think about. So it's not going to be maybe a very frontal elevation sort of building. It's going to speak from both sides. But this, as the city manager said, this is our site here. It's bisected by Stevens, and it's got some utility challenges. But we're going to be siting it probably a little closer to the road, but the style will speak to that. So what we've got tonight here are 5 boards, and these boards, as we go through them, these boards will each have 4 photos on them. You've already probably gotten to look at them as you've come in this evening. But these boards are going to be representative of a style. And we're going to very simply describe it. And we don't want you to think of this in terms of, I like this building or I like that building, but I like this board. Because really this is the process. It's kind of a high-level process today. When we come back again, we'll try and tighten it up a little bit more in terms of focusing on the style. And by that 3rd meeting, we hope we'll have something that you all will be very proud of. So really, I just want to go through these individual boards, and then we'll go back through them and take questions. But just to give you kind of an overview of each one of them. All right, so board number 1. And as I've heard it, you may all believe that this looks maybe most like what you saw in January, possibly. This is a more contemporary style. This is a style that I would say is maybe a combination of masonry and steel, maybe a lighter construction, but obviously a very municipal, good mix of materials kind of construction for this kind of building. This next one is really a heavier, more monumental masonry building. Still a lot of glass, just as much glass maybe as in this, but really more masonry focused, where this one has maybe more steel to it. This one is bigger, stronger columns and just a heavier facade. And then you get to something like this, which maybe is a bit more historically based. This is, as style goes, this is a more Art Deco style, and it may not be everyone's style, but it's in 1930-ish, may recall some architecture here in Norcross, but it's a very simple, stylish architecture. And then we have, in Norcross, one big theme that we know for this city is the railroad inspiration theme. And so we wanted to definitely have a style that was representative of this. We know that this is a favorite kind of architecture here, this kind of symbology. And so this is, you might think this is indicative of red brick. It doesn't have to be, but this is more about the massing, maybe arches. These are all two-story buildings that I'm showing you, but this is more indicative of, we believe, of this railroad type architecture. You'll see in the bottom left maybe a hip roof, whereas some of these other buildings had more flat roofs. So this may have a more historic looking roof structure. But anyway, this is the railroad board. And then we had to give you something like this that's really just to kind of complete the municipal architecture. This is very traditional, very classical architecture. And it may or may not be Norcross's cup of tea, but we wanted to give you as broad a range of styles as we could. So these are the 5. Again, these are all not necessarily one photo focused. So focus on the character of all of these buildings. And so I guess, Kelly, maybe what we want to do is open it up for comments. I mean, what do you think? What do you think about this? Yeah. This is board 1. So this is the big number 1 here that you see when you walked in. Yes. Looks like a school. So not suitable for a public safety building for you. Yes.
My thought is, we're looking at this one, and then you showed us 5, and the comparison is 5 seems to be more efficient. Moreover, you've got 33,000 square feet. You could fit it into a smaller building. Yeah. This would have to be bigger if we decide to do 33,000 with this one.
So this one as opposed to...
It's going to be much bigger compared to that one, which would be more efficient.
This one. You said 5?
My wife's the whispering.
Okay.
Not very much. But we know we don't like that, but it's just a point that if we do, we may be driving costs up. Got it.
Okay. Yes.
Thinking of number 4 and our efforts to be, supportive of our community and community policing, and the idea that there would be public meeting space there.
Right.
What I like about it is that it is the least visually oppressive, threatening.
This
might
one?
be words. No, the very first one. The very
All right.
first one is the
That's
one
good.
that is most open and inviting to the public. And if we're trying to subliminally message to our community, that we are an open and transparent police force and we believe in community policing. These ones, to me, exude that in a way that the dark, closed buildings don't reinforce the same
Yeah.
message of what I think our police force is trying to be in this community.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, so the question that I would have is, I think you've done a really, really nice job of trying to incorporate historic Norcross, how it looks, et cetera, but has there been any consideration to Buford Highway Initiative? Because the last thing I'd want to see is one building looking really odd compared to, now of course we got to wait for developers, et cetera, right, for that particular thing. But the last thing I would want to have is have an odd building amongst other buildings. So,
Fair enough. Yes.
I know you're talking about the look right now, but what consideration has been given about the energy efficiency and the sustainability of the buildings?
These will be sustainable designs.
Is there a difference in the five, or are they all going to be the same regarding?
There would not be. There would not.
Not,
They would all be considered equal. You know, I think in terms of,
my question is, which one is the most energy efficient and the most sustainable over time?
I think it's hard to say. Yeah, thank you. I would say that that's a hard question. I think that we could make any one of those five very sustainable. So I think that's the best answer that I can give you at this point. I mean, right now, we're just looking at a style. I think there are ways that we can that we can approach the skin of the building and approach the systems of the building that may not have anything to do with what they look like from the outside. I would say maybe the glass is something that we would have to look at. If we were going with a lot of glass, that's something that's certainly a consideration with sustainability. But I think in terms of look, I think we could do anything. I do.
Well, sustainable.
We do understand that sustainability is important, and that will be part of the programming as we continue on this path for the next couple months.
I already have the microphone, Jimmy. So to
Ruthless
Rob's
bunch.
point, there's no way number one is going to be as efficient as the other ones. There's no way you can make glass. I'm an HVAC engineer. I know you can't make that
Glass
as
is
efficient.
tough.
You cannot
Glass is
make that
tough.
as efficient. So that's my point.
But systems, I think we could, we can look at
You're
it.
going to spend money to heat and cool the glass that could be spent better on a police car or another policeman or
Right.
another dispatcher.
Right.
So that's my comment.
Yes, ma'am.
So, actually, I'm talking to you guys. What do we want from the beginning? Yes, we hire 1 and 2. When I'm looking what I want for Norcross, I will be proud of the building. So I looked like what we have that we can be proud already. And we have one public building that we have history of that from 2009. Am I right? No, excuse me, 1908. So we have only one historic building that even that not belong to us as a public in this moment. And if you want to get a little bit understanding of that, I will give to Jean to talk about the Women Club, because he's our historian, not me. For me, even before we have all of them, I think to get a great, outstanding building, it's to have competition in architecture and not this fuss. Every architect know about competition, including them. When you have competition between architects, you get result and not seeing picture that I saw 6 months ago with no insulting anyone. I saw it in Google it. Everyone can Google and get a picture of what is that and what is that. We already got something not only okay, the library. It's not great. Inside it's great, but not outside. And if we want to make a statement and connection with downtown, for me, the connection with downtown can be if we add something more with thinking people as a museum of police. We don't have in all Atlanta police museum. And if we will add it, it's something that we connect between the new building, adding maybe more, and could be, if we don't have the money, we can have someone donate the money, and it's philanthropic, and call the name of the museum under him. It's a time for us to think now, to have a voice now, what we want. I want to see competition in building. That's what I want. I'm the only one? Okay, maybe. If I'm the only one, I will shut my mouth. And we will get like the library, like a general building, not outstanding, that we can be proud of. That's my thinking. If you want to know the history about the buildings that we have, I will let Gene talk.
Thanks. You know, all these styles of buildings we could build. Two things come to mind. One is that we're a railroad town, and having some notion of that building reflecting that we're a railroad town. And the only reason the town's here is because 150 years ago, or a little more, the railroad was built. And the other thing is that we're going to be using this building for 100 years or more. And so we need to choose wisely now. And I think you guys are certainly giving us some options here. But it would be, you know, one thing we need to think about is not just whether we're going to like it or not, but somebody 50 years from now is going to like it. And one of the reasons that people like downtown Norcross in particular is that it has an old feel to it. And I don't know that it's necessarily an old feel that we want, but it's having something interesting, you know, that this is, if you go to number 5, that reminds me of that thing they built up in Duluth, which you know, I'm sure it works, or I guess it does, but it's not very interesting to me. So, you know, I particularly like the ones in number 4 because they look more railroad-esque to me, as you pointed out. But, you know, there are other styles too. But we are going to be using it 100 years from now, so you know, that is something we need to think about.
Well, the most important thing for us tonight is to get your input. And that's really the whole goal of this, is to hear what you have to say about all of these. And then we're going to take this back and try and incorporate this into the next round. So are there any other comments?
I like what Gene had to say. I take his word to value because he is a historian. I do like the idea that we are a railroad town, and that's important. But another question I have, and I hate to put the chief of police on what does he have to say, sir? What do you think about these buildings? Because you're going to be working out of it. You're going to be in there every day. I'd like to hear what you have to say about these buildings.
Fortunately, 2 things. One is I don't need a microphone. But 2 is that I made this sounds like a joke, but it really isn't. I just need it to function. I really do. Quite honestly, I have not one artistic bone in my body. I prefer, but I did grow up in Norcross. I like the railroad town feel. I don't know that it has to look like a train station, but I kind of like that blend. But the reality is, I just need more than what I've got right now. It's pretty non-functional.
one more thing. I didn't hear anything. Is there holding cells in this facility? No holding cells. So you go straight to Gwinnett? Okay. Clear. I'm done. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes. I like number 1 because I'm going to agree with Kathleen. We have issues about people getting interested to participate with the police department.
Yeah.
And that is more open. And we have to think one thing. We're not getting any younger. We have a lot of young people here. We have to ask the young of Norcross what do they think, because in 20 years we're not going to be here. And I know it's beautiful to keep it traditional, but we have to think about that too.
Thank you.
From a cost standpoint, does the style 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, I mean, does the cost change? If you choose 1, it's going to be X, but if you choose 5, it's less expensive or more. And the functionality inside the space, does the style have a bearing on how, to the chief's comments back there, is style 4 or 5 more functional inside than 1 or 2 or one of the others?
I think, well, to address cost, for our purposes tonight, no. Cost has no bearing on style. So what we want you to do, what's important to us is to get your feedback with regard to what these buildings look like. And so, it's not that cost is not important, but for right now, we need your feedback on what the building is going to look like, on the characteristics of the building.
I think it's a great opportunity for the building to reflect how Norcross is expanding. I think the worst thing you can do is try and copy an old building, because people know it's a copy of an old building. I think it's a chance. When I was on the council, I did vote for the library, but I was unsure when they said it was going to be modern, but it actually works quite well. And something has to bridge Buford Highway. And I don't think a traditional railway building would do it. And I say that tongue-in-cheek, I guess, because I was on the Historic Preservation Board and all the rest of it. But I just think this is a real chance to connect. And because Norcross is expanding, is going over Buford Highway, because that's where the future is, because there's very little to develop here. It's all developed. Yes, the young people, they like to as Norcross is now. That's why they're here. So in 20 years, they'll like it, and it's growing. I mean, people are wanting to come here. House prices are going up, up, up. So, something's right. But I think that over Buford Highway, because that's what it is, it's an ugly road. There's nothing. You've got a used car lot right next to the building. You've got I won't say a massage parlor, but you've got the washroom next door, whatever it is. And so it's very mixed, isn't it? And you've got extended stays all over the place. So I really do think that it is an opportunity to try and reflect, let's say, a growing Norcross and expanding, a futuristic Norcross. It doesn't have to be all glass, but I do think that it has to show something towards the future. We want a police force that is in the future, and the police force is the most important thing in Norcross. When I was on the council, they did a survey, and 96% of the people wanted to come to Norcross because of the police, because it was safe.
Yeah.
And so let's do something to portray some sort of security, but on the other hand, it is an opportunity. I think to go back to the traditional is not a smart thing, because the traditional is downtown. It's not out of town, and you're getting towards out of town.
That's wonderful. Let me go back real quick. You had asked 2 questions, and one was about function. To finish the answer, they could all function similarly as well. I think that's the way that we would approach it. So I think that these types of, possibly the classical would be more locked into a more rectangular kind of solution. But I think, to the chief's point, I mean, if we can make it work, then, a rectangle would probably work just as well as some of these others. So I think it's about how we work the plan.
If green still exists in those classifications, what green level would you be shooting for?
What green level?
Green level, yeah.
Is that with the city of, is that the cities? Like LEED? I wouldn't say, I don't think that we're intending to go for LEED, but we are intending to be sustainable. I don't think that we think about it in those terms, really. Yeah. And that is the way that we build all of our buildings, is to be sustainable. Yes, sorry.
I would like to say that I agree with Jean that I think 4 represents downtown Norcross as it is today. And so I think we need to think about, this is the first building. There's going to be other buildings that are going to be popping up, right? The post office may need to be refurbished, everything else. So I think we need to set the standard as to what we want downtown Norcross to look like, not only the historic part, but do we want to represent Norcross as one fluid moment, or do we want to have one building to be Art Deco, one building to be this, one building to be that? How do we want our city to look?
Right. Right. I agree.
I got to tell you, there was an attorney I knew. He said, he had a sign on his wall, "No horse too dead to beat." So let me beat this horse. The glass on number 1, that's a southern facing building, southern southwest. And so you're going to get a lot of heat. Just an observation, looking at your first page where you showed the layout.
Any other questions or comments, likes?
I have a question. If I have to be stuck with what I have, I want to see competition inside of your groups. You say you are designer, so you have architecture there. You are architect with a lot of architect there. Why we cannot see competition in exactly the place that we have, not some pictures that I can Google. Or you take it or you don't take it. But that's what we need to see as a people. I never saw any firm of architecture that can play and tell me I can choose to do Art Deco, I can do modern, it's not working like that in the world. That very surprised me to see that. So what I want to see, it's competition between you. Please, that I will get something. It's always good to have competition in life.
Well, let me ask, what would you like for the building to look like?
So, I'm not working as an architect, but I'm
Okay.
I know how it works.
Okay.
I was a long-time architect in building that I will be proud to say, yes, people come to see Norcross. We are a small town, need people to come to see.
Right.
And because of that, it has competition. Push other people in your office. It doesn't take a long time to give a vision. It's only a picture. They can draw it quickly. If I need to do the work, I will want to get paid. So I think it's great. You have two, make competition. Great. The best one will be chosen by the people.
There you go.
And not by this kind of,
Well,
you're looking at the offices, not at the corridors.
This was our starting point. You know, this is when you have a large group that's, you know, from diverse occupations and backgrounds, it's good to start at a high level and get everyone's feedback. And really that was what we wanted to do here, was just to get initial thoughts so we could work from that.
At 8:30 next Monday night, so it's a full week. So, yes, sir. So what's going to happen is we will take your input from tonight and the voting results, and we'll come back at the second town hall meeting, and we will present more focused design elements to further. It will be based on the design style that had the most votes. That way we know our path. If you want the railroad look, then that's good for us to know so that we can start moving in the right direction and wow you at the second town hall meeting. But we certainly don't want to go off to Art Deco if the town doesn't want that. So you're going to give us a starting point tonight. Yes, ma'am.
Since we don't have anybody under the age of 21 or 18, would it be possible to do a survey at Norcross High and Colby STEM High School, like during the lunch hour, and get our students who will be living in this community for the next 50 years to weigh in?
Yes?
I work closely with both principals. That was my question. Yeah. I work closely with both principals. I bet I could get them to, show these, take these over to the high school, let the high school students.
Okay. Well, we can certainly talk a little bit further about that when the council members start talking. That would be great to address. It's a good idea. Anything else? Yes, sir. We would prefer not.
Actually, any meeting that we conduct where we have a quorum after discussion with legal and with GMA. So who is taking the minutes of the meeting? Okay, thank you so much. And they will be available for the public that's not here. I did not take a moment to thank staff for their hard work in pulling all this together, including the rehearsal that we did earlier this afternoon. That was very fruitful, so in preparation for tonight.
Anywhere in Metro Atlanta that has railroad motifs to it, and I think that's something we want, is something that's unique. It kind of goes to Ruthie's comments of something you can be proud of, something that's not just an Buford Highway is envisioned as the, well, not envisioned, it's in fact the main road through the city. Everybody in this room drives on Buford Highway practically every day. And while downtown is downtown and it's our historic center, Buford Highway is really the visual that not only residents but visitors see all day long, every single day. And so you want whatever is there to be a very
person, and it's like which one comes first, the cart or the horse, and you know, and I know that from a planning perspective, it's probably really difficult to start with function, but I almost wonder if maybe we shouldn't try digging just a little bit deeper and defining function a little bit more. You know, when you look at just some examples, when you look at the train station, it's long. That's going to be something that we're going to have to surmount if we really want it to make it be a place that's inviting and that's not some place that people are scared to go to and that the only reason they're there is because they got into trouble. So that's all I've got to say.
Any other comments from council? Thank you certainly for those comments. Let me just defend my friends up in Duluth just for a moment. Their police station is a result of adaptive reuse. They didn't build their police station to look like this. The building was there, and they adaptively reused that building. Now, we've done the same thing too with the South End, but our canvas is much better to work from, so you get a much better product. So that's why it's important to maintain our historic character here in our downtown area, so that you can have good bones, and so that the result of your work or your changes are aesthetically pleasing. So having said that, I'm going to open it back up to the public. Sonia Lopez, you have a question at this time.
We are all seniors, so we have to keep that in mind. It's very important to get involved the young people, the youth, because they are the future generations. Another thing is that I would like to see an invitation for everybody that lives in this city to be represented here, because everybody has a voice, okay? And it's very important for all of us to be involved.